Welcome to Raiders in Focus. I'm Glenn Belo, Director of Admission and Enrollment Management.
And I'm Elizabeth Crampsey, Director of Marketing and Communications. We are back with our third episode and appreciate you listening.
Yes, and if this is your first time tuning in, Raiders in Focus takes listeners inside Randolph School. Each month, we spotlight a different aspect of education, student life, and well-being, sharing stories, insights, and perspectives that bring our community to life.
So whether you're a part of the Randolph family or exploring what makes our school unique, Raiders in Focus gives a thoughtful look at the people, programs, and experiences that define the Randolph journey.
Today, we are focusing on Randolph's middle school. And because I promised this, we're going to ask you to meet us in the middle, which is a great catchphrase for our wonderful guest, Jennifer Ragsdale, the head of middle school.
Hi, Glenn and Elizabeth. Thanks for inviting me in. I'm thrilled to be here to talk about one of my favorite things, the middle school years.
We're so glad you're here. Thank you, Jen. Before we dive in today, let's start with something that is pretty unique about Randolph. Our middle school starts in 5th grade, and that's an intentional choice. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. And, when I came to Randolph so many years ago, 5th grade was really unique to me too. But I've learned to love having them part of the middle school, and it just makes sense in so many ways. Even though we have a 5th through 8th grade middle school, our 5th through 6th grade is on a totally different schedule and in a separate building. So the 5th grade still has an upper elementary school feel, even though we don't tell them that. I often check in with the 5th graders throughout different types of the year, and they always tell me their very favorite thing about middle school is being able to change classes and the independence they feel. So that's a really big deal to them. The other really important part of our 5th grade experience, it is truly a foundational year, meaning that instead of teachers really focusing on specific content in their classes, they're covering the foundations that they need to be successful in any class. So, for example, Mr. Heilman, our famous 5th grade science teacher, is covering a wide variety of science topics, with the main focus is on training them to be a scientist in a lab classroom, which prepares them for our 6th grade earth science. And this is really true for all of the subject areas in middle school. So we believe in helping the kids develop these foundational skills that can help them be successful in any content throughout their middle school years.
I think this is one of the defining moments for independent schools, is that we can clearly articulate our mission and program from division to division.
Absolutely. And the other part that's really special about the 5th grade year is that our teachers are really masterful, not only working with the students, but also working with the parents and helping them to transition to middle school. Sometimes that brings anxiety for parents. And so they really are intentional in helping parents find that right balance of involvement. So while we want students to become more independent and develop self-advocacy skills, that doesn't come easily for a lot of kids, and it takes time. So our teachers really work closely with parents throughout that transition, and we want that partnership to happen throughout their whole middle school experience.
That's just critical for parents in this moment as they watch their kiddos grow up and become individuals, which, as hard as it is, we had a head of school years ago that said our children are meant to leave us. And so if we're going to launch them successfully into this big world, there have to be those steps towards independence. And it's really hard for parents to watch the kiddos make mistakes.
I use the analogy a lot of times of being in a car with children. When you're in lower school, you're driving the car.
Mm-hmm.
And when kids go into the middle school, the kids, even though they're not technically old enough to drive, they're really taking over that driving responsibility. But as a parent, you're still in the front seat. You're giving them a lot of instruction, but you're preparing them for that upper school experience where, you're shifting to the back seat and eventually you're out of the car, but we have to
I love that.
turn that
Such a
responsibility
great
over to
analogy.
them.
Oh, I've never heard that. I love that. You have said before that middle schoolers are really misunderstood. A lot of people view these years as something you just have to get through, like a rite of passage. But Randolph really flips that mindset. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from, it's based on our own experience in the middle school. And so for so many of us, we carry on kind of how we experience middle school, and sometimes we might project that onto our own children. It certainly was that way for me. In fact, my husband used to joke with me that he couldn't imagine why I loved middle school so much based off of my own horror stories when I was in middle school. But I realized when I came to Randolph that middle school can and should be different. We know these are challenging years. We know they're complex, and we know that they can be hard, but it shouldn't be bad. And the adults can have so much influence over that experience. So what I have learned and just really value about these years is that middle schoolers are fascinating young adults who are figuring out who they are and how they fit into their own community and into society. And they have amazing ideas. and really deserve to be listened to. So I believe that just with the right amount of support and accountability and guidance from us, they can truly thrive. So I love walking through the halls. I'm constantly amazed and impressed by what they have to say and just kind of being a fly on the wall and listening to their conversations. And I believe that these are young adults who are really going to make our society a better place one day. And really, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think anybody can argue this. Middle schoolers are the most hilarious of any age group. But you just can't take yourself too seriously when you work with them. And you never know what's going to come out of their mouth. And I joke about that. I joke with my team that when I retire, I'm going to write a book one day. And that's going to be a whole chapter about like things that middle schoolers have said to me that you just really couldn't believe. I'm going to have a chapter that's like things you never thought you'd say when you're in school, like to become a teacher. That's going to be a chapter, but it's going to be entertaining.
I love it. And I love how you position this as with the narrative of not just surviving the middle school years, but enjoying it and a time when students can figure out who they are and what they care about and who they want to be in a safe space with that guidance and lack of judgment.
I think that safe space is really important to recognize. And I often tell parents and students that the stakes are never going to be lower than they are at this very moment for kids. And so my team and I know that kids this age, and I tell parents this, they're going to make mistakes and bad choices. So we try to take the pressure off of that by telling them that ahead of time. I really usually say that parent night, like, let's just get this out of the way. Kids at this age are going to make mistakes and bad choices, and nobody skates through their middle school years with complete grace. So the sooner we really recognize that, I think the better it is to kind of take that pressure off them. And in fact, we want them to have those opportunities so that they can grow through them. What makes Randolph special is that we give them the space and sometimes grace to make the mistakes in the middle school. And when I have difficult conversations with students, I remind them that tomorrow's a new day. You know, you have the opportunity to walk through the door and to turn the page, and that ultimately I believe in them and their potential. And that's what I would want for somebody to say to me.
And that's what David Yanger, the author of 10 to 25, taught us to think, is to believe in students' full potential and challenge them and support them to reach that.
It's super hard to do because the exact opposite is the parent and student mindset. We really think the stakes are getting higher. And I love your point because it really is the opportunity. You really want to get that F on a test that you didn't study for. The school lets you down if they're making A's on tests they're not studying for, because they're never going to learn at that moment in time. Oh, yeah, effort produces results, and lack of effort also produces results. And if they don't learn that, we've missed an opportunity.
Right. So let's start with the students themselves. We talked about how middle school starts in 5th grade here at Randolph, but we also welcome students throughout the year in all different grades. Jen, what has it been like welcoming new students, and how are they adjusting?
We were so excited to welcome 40 new middle schoolers this year. And we talked with our team over the summertime that while it's exciting, it's also a huge responsibility on us. It's really important to me and our team to make sure they felt connected and support. So during in-service, faculty were engaged in conversations about how to ensure that new students and their families knew right away that they were part of the Raider Nation. And we do that in a lot of ways. Our advisors have really close eyes on them. They're checking in with them regularly and reaching out to families. And also one of the things that we're really intentional about is having our middle school counselor, Miss Savannah. She checks in with every new student during the fall semester to kind of get a pulse of how things are going, to form that connection, to make sure they understand that she's someone that they can reach out to as they navigate these middle school years.
And let's talk about the house system, something that we love to share on tours. And we all love to attend the yearly sorting into all the houses. And as a former Vanscap Viking housekeeper, I would love for you to talk a little bit about the house system and how that fosters such a great sense of belonging.
Our house system is a huge part of the tradition and culture of our middle school and something we're so proud of. You know, besides offering opportunities for fun and healthy competitions, ultimately the house system provides an instant community and place of belonging for our students new to the middle school. And that's really for both our 5th graders and new students. The first assembly of the year is maybe one of my favorite traditions and moments in the middle school. It's where we induct new middle schoolers into the house system. I usually kind of have to give a warning to classrooms that are close by that it might get really loud and disruptive because the enthusiasm is just palpable in the hall. They come up one by one, they reach in and they draw out their house, and they are greeted by just a sea of enthusiasm of those students in the 6th through 8th grade, and they're handed their new house shirt, they put them on, and they're physically welcomed into the middle school. And then they get to welcome the new students as they come in from that point. So it's just a really magical moment. And then I think the other thing that makes our house system really special, that is totally student-led by our 8th grade house captains. And these eighth graders, they go through an extensive application and interview process the spring of their seventh grade year. That's actually led by current house captains, so they're part of that process. And these student leaders, they're mentored by our eighth grade Spanish teacher, Steph Dwyer, who's done an amazing job in guiding the planned house events, but also teaching them effective leadership strategies. I think, Elizabeth, you were in our assembly this week when the house captain stood up in front of the whole middle school and presented new house values to the students, and it was based off of the acronym SPIRIT. So I was asking Ms. Dwyer later, like, how did this come about? They came up with this idea, they created posters, they presented to the students, and she said it really came out of a moment of frustration from a previous house event where they were frustrated with some lack of involvement from students. So Ms. Dwyer told them, we could either sit around and complain about it, or we could do something about it proactively. So the kids kind of brainstormed away and they came up with this acronym SPIRIT, and they came up with words and definitions and posters, and students can come and recite the values for House Point. So this is just an example of the student agency and ownership of the school experience.
The solution-oriented mindset is so impressive at this level. I mean, for the kids to take that experience of frustration and in a safe space,
Right.
they found a great outcome for that. So it's pretty impressive. I know you took the time to check in with new students recently. Can you tell us about that check-in and what stood out to these new students? The proof is in the pudding. How are they feeling?
Absolutely. I had such a good time with that. So I met with the new students in small groups and actually had them do a report card on the school. So I told them, we get report cards or progress reports as students, and they get to do a report card on their experience at Randolph so far. So they got to use emojis like the teenagers love to do to rate their experiences on joy, challenge, support, kindness, and community. And the feedback was not only really useful for me, but also really affirming to us. So students commented on how welcomed they felt and how kind their classmates have been. Several students remarked that they were being challenged, but in a good way, which is what we want. We want to see them being challenged. Which is why a lot of our families send their students to Randolph. They're looking for that appropriate amount of challenge. And one of the most common remarks was how supported they felt by teachers, with children even saying, I felt that the whole school really cares about their students and will do anything to help them. Some other students talked about how they can go to any teacher and get help, but my favorite comment came from a new fifth grader who told the story about how she moved to Alabama several years ago, and Randolph was her third school. So she talked about how excited she was when she received her acceptance letter. There was tears of joy, and how nervous she was when she came. But she said that Randolph, for the first time, has made Alabama feel like home. I mean, I can't imagine a more special statement than that.
That's fabulous. Such a sense of community and relationship building you have established in the middle school. This sets a strong foundation, obviously, the bridge between lower school and upper school. Everything else that happens in the middle school, especially the support systems you have in place. Can you talk a little bit about those academic, social, and emotional support systems?
Absolutely. They need so much support and care over these years, over these 4 years that they're with us. And over the last few years, the school has been really intentional in building the Learning Center, and I've seen a really direct impact in the student experience as we are able to meet more students' needs. And then I'm sure you see that in the admissions process too, as we look at students. But it's definitely a collaborative approach with both students, faculty, and our learning support team, and also parents. So one way in the middle school that we collaborate as a team is that we have weekly grade level team meetings with every grade level team where teachers meet and we talk about students, and we talk about them in a really positive way. So we talk about what students' challenges are facing, and what process and support places we have already established, but what we might need to change. So our student support team joins those meetings to gather information and also offer resources and suggestions. Then a follow-up to that is our student support team meets later in the week along with a nurse and Mr. Beckman to make sure we really have a comprehensive view of the student experience and make sure we are supporting each student fully. But it does require a lot of time and communication and intentionality. But we talk about students a lot to really meet each student's needs. The other thing the Learning Center has provided for us is they've really worked to form connections in the community to bring in tutors to our campus to work with students who might need additional outside support. And this has been really helpful and responsive to our families' needs who are so busy in the afternoons. So if students are coming onto our campus, they know our teachers, they know our curriculum, and that's been a huge benefit to our student experience.
Jen, your administrative team is really involved in the best ways possible. Each person has a distinct role, whether it's student culture, academics, social emotional support, or learning support. They really are an amazing team. Can you walk us through who does what and how that collaborative structure helps support the whole student?
Sure. My administrative team is truly a dream team. I could talk about them all day. And though that they have a distinctive role, they exist collaboratively and communicate daily. A student is doing socially can certainly impact how they are performing academically. So we really partner together to look holistically at that student experience and to make sure we're really understanding what's going on. Ryan Wegledge is in his third year in the role as assistant head of school, middle school, with a focus on school culture. So he's done amazing work over the last few years in building school culture and spirit. And frankly, he's just done a lot in making our middle school more fun. And he also works on student behavior. But what makes him so effective in his role is that he's really intentional in building positive relationships with students so they trust him. And when he has to have a difficult conversation, the students and parents already have that trust. And they know him and they respect him. Whitney Andrews is part of our team. She's our Dean of Academic Support, and she tells families that she serves as a secondary advisor. She's really magical at helping students with academic support when they get off track. She also works closely with students and parents and faculty in formulating academic plans for success. And she's like a life coach. I often joke with her that I need her to coach me on most days to keep me on track. She's just one of the most organized people you'll ever meet. Jolene Brown does work in our learning center, and she's our middle school learning specialist. So she works with all students who have diagnosed learning differences on file. I think one of the things that people value about Jolene is that she is constantly looking ahead at what they need for that next phase in their school life. So while she understands what they need now, she also helps prepare them for what's next. She also works with all students in the 5th and 6th grade on executive functioning skills and is always up for a good binder dump and clean out. I was up in the hall the other day and she asked one of our 7th graders, "You ready to clean out that binder?" And she literally takes it in there and dumps it all out and they reorganize it. And she just is kind of like that, again, that kind of life coach and getting them organized.
There's got to be some parents out there listening, and that's music to their ears.
Exactly.
And one of the things, too, I think that's so baked into Randolph's program is that we really help kiddos through the day. We don't want parents to have to deal with this messiness of school and executive
Right.
functioning. I think this is so true in your division and the others as well, that we partner with parents and say, you just love them
Yeah.
up. Have that family time in the evening and let us do the hard work of advisor, executive functioning, binder clean out, right? That's what we're here for.
You're right. And, we know that sometimes there's increased tensions in the parent-child dynamic during these ages. And so let us play that role, right? Send us an email and say, my child needs some extra support in this area. They don't even have to know that you emailed us. We tell them that.
And that's so key, right? Somebody years ago, an administrator gave me a piece of advice. It's like, be a stealth helicopter parent. Because nobody wants you just to be hands off, right? Like everybody wants to be engaged, but there's an appropriate level. And certainly as you get into upper school, I think that matters more to be that stealth parent. So you're involved, but very much kind of under the radar.
I have a feeling Julian's going to get a lot of emails now about messy binders.
That's too funny.
And the last person on our support team is Savannah Donaldson. She's Miss Savannah to the kids, and she's our middle school counselor. So she supports the students in so many areas of their life, both personally and in school. And she's a safe space for on our campus. It's not uncommon for students to just line up outside her door looking for advice or just a friendly face to talk to. She also coordinates our advisory lessons and other lessons that affect our SEL program, and she's currently the cheerleading coach. So
Isn't there a goose outside her door?
She does have a counseling goose. His name's Gilbert, so she dresses him up for the holidays.
He's a festive goose.
He is. Adam Bay was walking by one time and just stopped in his tracks. I said, "Don't ask questions. It's our counseling goose." So they're an amazing team. I adore them and have so much joy just watching them come together to support the students and each other, and they're just a real differentiator for our school.
You walk through the hallways and you can truly feel the warmth. Middle school does get a bad rap, to your earlier point. They're misunderstood, but they are some of the funniest, best kids.
Yeah.
I love the parent testimonial that you've shared recently when one parent said the middle school exceeded their expectations, and it's actually fun.
Yeah, right.
But
It is.
we should be having fun. Life is too short not to have fun. Okay, so I'm curious about the flex classes in X Block, not to be confused with Club Z. But let's talk about the flex classes in X Block. What are those, and how do they help students?
Sure. So our flex classes are for 5th and 6th graders, and they're named that on purpose because they're intended to be flexible and really responsive to what our students might need to set them up for success in other areas of school life. So every summer we really look at what do our students need inside of these classes, and what's maybe lacking, or what skills do we really need to reinforce. And so they're really seminar style. So students spend about 6 sessions in a class before rotating to a new session. And the other really neat thing about these classes is that so many of them are taught by our administrative and student support teams. So 5th and 6th graders get 2 years of executive functioning skills, which, as you said, Glenn, are so critical for these years. and counseling taught by Miss Brown and Miss Savannah. Fifth graders also have a keyboarding skills class, which we've heard from parents over and over again that these are just a skill that our students lack. I tell parents, like, kids are really good with typing with their thumbs, but they can't transfer that to a computer. So they have some keyboarding skills class that just helps them be more efficient in the classroom. They also get a drama class taught by our theater teacher, Miss Clark, and a tech and research class. And then in sixth grade, they rotate through a public speaking class, which I think is so important for them. A wellness class taught by Coach Smalley. So she really talks with them about healthy coping strategies and just a way to live like a healthier lifestyle. Kind of it's reinforced with our of wellness right now. And then a team building and leadership class taught by Mr. Wegledge.
Let's mention Greengate School at Randolph. You co-head that school, that division, with Missy McLean, our lower school head, and that involves 5th and 6th grade programming. But one thing I'd love for you to focus on is the Bridge program in the 7th grade that helps students transition from the Greengate program into the traditional classroom. Can you walk us through how the Bridge program prepares students for middle school and beyond?
Yeah, so the Bridge program is in its second year of its existence, and it's really special and unique to Randolph. And it literally helps bridge the Greengate division, the middle school division, and creates a path for those students who are coming out of Green. So it's really kind of a hybrid approach where students have a language arts class taught by our Greengate language arts teacher. They also have a math class that they're placed into based off their level or placement. And then they're fully integrated into our traditional science and history classes. But I think really what kind of sets this apart is that instead of taking a world language class that year, students in the Bridge program, they receive a group tutorial taught by a former OG tutor, and she really focuses on organizational strategies and written expression. So last year, with this being our first year, I spent a lot of time talking with the students and the parents, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. It just worked for the kids, and the feedback from the parents, they really talked about how it was such a huge confidence boost. You know, it was appropriate to kind of get them back into this traditional classroom. And I've been tracking the students who are now 8th graders, and they're thriving. I mean, not only academically, but just watching them, it's been really special to watch.
So great to hear those success stories and see these students start to flourish during those very important years. All of that support is essential, and you are doing such meaningful work. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Middle schoolers have a lot on their plates. How do students at Randolph balance academics with athletics and the arts?
You know, Glenn, one of the things that attracted me to teach at Randolph so many years ago was the focus on excellence in all areas of student life. So those 3 pillars of academics, arts, and athletics. And really, especially in the middle school years, we encourage our kids to try out a lot of new things and figure out what sticks. So we're not expecting them to be experts at any one thing. So we want them to try out different arts classes, the theater, the and really kind of see what their passions are so that they can start to really pursue some of those. So we have an amazing arts program that has a wide variety of offerings, both inside the classroom and outside of school. And so many of our students are student athletes. So we really want to make sure that they are able to balance it all. And so one of the ways we do that is in 7th and 8th grade, when athletics really start to pick up, every student has a study hall at the end of the day. So that allows them time to get started on their homework before they move into athletics practices. And it's also a time where every academic teacher is available for help. So when we were redoing our schedule this year, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I heard from parents and students and faculty was, please don't get rid of our end of day study hall. They really value that time. And it also teaches our students how to be self-advocates. Say we want them to go to teachers and get the support they need. And then the other thing that I think is really special about Randolph and kind of supporting our students who want to do so much is our athletic department does a great job in prioritizing the message that our students are student athletes and their academic studies have to be a priority. So it's not uncommon for Whitney or Ryan to reach out to a coach to see if they can offer extra encouragement when a student needs it. And we know the coach and the role that a coach plays in a child's life is so critical.
Can you talk about those success workshops?
Yeah, success workshops. Whitney Andrews created those her first year in her role, and they've been a huge hit with both students and parents. And Whitney's done a really neat job at kind of enticing students to come. She had like a punch card at one point where kids can get a punch every time they came for a treat. But they're hosted during lunch. They're quick, like 30-minute workshops to kind of reinforce what they're learning in the classroom.
Can you talk a little bit more about AI in the Honor Code? That's
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Obviously, AI is something that's always evolving, and we're trying to stay just in conversations with students. And when I talk with students is that we don't want AI to replace the relational side of school. So when we talk about the honor code and we talk about the importance of it, and I always tell students, I want to go to a school that has an honor code. One of the things that when I interviewed here, I was amazed by the fact that kids left their backpacks out in the halls and they left their computers out and their phones out. So it's that relational piece that makes Randolph so special. So as we talk about AI and honor code, it's the conversations that happen that are really important to us. And a lot of our teachers will guide students on when it's appropriate to use. We're not going to shy away from it and say it's never appropriate. It can be really powerful and it can be really dicing lessons. So our teachers have been really intentional in kind of guiding students on when it's appropriate, how it's appropriate, how it can be used, and then when it's not appropriate. And it's tricky.
It's tricky and it's changing every day. But I think that when we lean into our values, especially integrity and trust, and those values are reinforced by an incredibly strong teaching faculty, our students are set up for success.
Absolutely.
So proud of Randolph. This is an area that I think a lot of schools are waiting it out or head in the sand. No judgment, but at Randolph, we are very intentional and strategic. And you guys are doing an amazing job of administration and strengths of the program. Let's talk about your teachers. They are amazing. What stands out to you about the teachers who work with this age group?
Yeah, they are amazing. I have so much respect and gratitude for the work they do every day. We're deeply committed to hiring faculty who are not only passionate and knowledgeable about what they teach, but also passionate about this age group. You middle school faculty, I feel like I'm kind of giving away a secret here. The first thing I always ask is why middle school?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's so important to me. I want to hire teachers that not only truly love working with middle schoolers, but they have a deep understanding of their developmental needs. I mean, that's just critical. So our middle school teachers not only have an incredible knack for teaching what they teach, but also for engaging with the students and connecting with them on that level. I know I talked in his podcast about the mentor mindset. So we're having those conversations. We only have these kids for a short amount of time. And it's such a gift to me. We get to mentor them and model them and really help them into young adults. It's really magical that we have that opportunity.
And it's an age when kids are growing in every direction all at once. So how do teachers help them balance their academic progress with all of the social and emotional changes that are happening too? Could you share some examples of how we focus on the whole student, their growth, well-being, engagement, and achievement?
I think, first of all, in order to do that, you have to really know the students. Twice a year, our teachers write full narrative comments on their students. And I get to read them all at the same time. And this year, I was really blown away by how much our teachers really know them and get them. And that allows us to focus on the whole student. But in order to keep those things in balance, sometimes we have to shift our focus. And we talk about that. If the wellness is out of line, we might need to put that into the spotlight. So that requires flexibility. And also having a partnership with parents, and having parents connect with us. It's really critical during these years. And I tell parents, kind of Glenn, to your point, we're here for the kids, but we're here for them too. It takes a village to work through these years.
What impact does this have on students when they have teachers who really know them and care deeply about their growth?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it means believing in them and seeing their value. And I think about it as a parent of two teenagers myself. More than anything, I want adults and teachers who know my children, who believe in them and see their potential and will support and challenge them to reach that potential. And so when we do that, I think it helps students see their own potential. I mean, these are kids who they sometimes lack in confidence, but when they can see their own potential, it's so powerful and critical at this age. So, we want students who are willing to take risks, to be curious, and who are not afraid to fail. And ultimately, I want kids who leave here and have dreams to change the world around them.
That brings us to another big part of Randolph's middle school experience, the schedule, how it supports wellness. We've talked about the X block. One of my favorite new things is the Z block. I'm really excited to engage the listeners with this project. Share.
Yeah, I'm glad it's one of your favorite things. I feel like people are tired of hearing me talk about Club Z.
No, I'm not.
I think it's one of the coolest things we've done in the middle school in a long time. And it literally came out of a brainstorming session last spring when Ryan Wegledge and I were looking at the new schedule, and we had an empty block in all the classes. When we looked at the block scheduling, we had just this open block. What are we going to do with this time? And we just said, how cool would it be if we plugged everybody into the club, but all at the same time, and for kids who have busy after school schedules and can't do clubs, how neat would it be to put everybody in a club where every teacher is involved? And really the important thing to remember about Club Z, and I tell the faculty this, it's even though there's some cool club offerings, it's less important about what they take and it's more about the connections and community that's being built. So Tim Calicut and Shelley Harriman are 7th and 8th grade teachers, and they're leading a Dungeons and Dragons club together. And I go in there, and it's fun to watch them play, and they're learning all the roles and everything. But to watch 5th and 6th graders working with 7th and 8th grade teachers who are going to teach them in a few years, I just can't wait to see the impact that's going to have. Or for 8th graders who are going back to John Heilman's 5th grade science lab and reconnecting with a teacher that they adored so many years ago. There's power in that. Opportunities we can have our kids to connect with more adults on campus is really powerful and special.
Talk about Philip Taylor's Club Z.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
He's doing amateur radio club, and I was outside one day, I think right outside your office, Lynn, and there's like this massive antenna, and I see him setting it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's for the radio club. So he does amateur radio club. I think they're licensed, like they have like a name and everything. So I had to see what they were doing. So I snuck up there, and they were like enthralled in this conversation. And they were so excited to tell me that they were talking to somebody in Canada, and had this moment like any one of them could pick up a cell phone and call this person in Canada, but it just wasn't the same, and it wasn't as cool as being able to talk to them over this radio.
And to have Dr. Taylor also just really getting in there and all the fun and engaging in such a great radio club. What about your club, Impact Raiders?
I love it. I think it's the highlight of my week. So Miss Savannah and Allison McCloud and I run the Impact Raiders Club. So it's a group of 17 girls in 5th through 8th grade. That's a service-oriented club. So we brainstorm ideas. We do research about kind of what our community needs. One project that they really enjoyed was they wanted to partner with Heels, and they needed coats, and they did a coat drive. They advertised for it. They put it up all over signs all over the school, and they ended up raising 85 coats, which I think far exceeded their expectations. And then their current project is they really want to sponsor a child through Kids to Love for their Christmas for the kids and fulfill their holiday wish list. So that was their big dream. And I said, well, we have to have money to do that. So they had an idea like, well, let's do a bake sale. And this is a really neat way for them to involve every middle school student. So every middle school student can bring in a baked item, or they can buy a baked good. So they're super excited about doing that. Whatever money they raise, they're going to pick a child to sponsor and buy their Christmas wish list. So it's just been really powerful. And for me, I don't get to teach a class anymore. And it's just been really special to connect with these girls.
So sweet. All of these pieces support the whole child, which brings us to understanding middle schoolers on a deeper level. They're figuring out who they are and where they fit in the more messy yet meaningful process. How does Randolph approach truly understanding students during these years?
You're right. The growth has to be messy, and we know that. There's no way around it. So it's important that we recognize that. And one of the many things that I love about the middle school years is that they're figuring out their identity and where they fit in. So it's so important that we teach students to really value each other's perspectives and listen to each other. And we have to model that as adults. So one of the things that David Yeager talks about in his book is that kids at this age really crave status and respect. And that really hit home to me. And I think about that so much in every interaction I have with students. So I try to demonstrate that in every conversation I have with a child. In community time, we tell kids that as members of our community, they're trusted and respected, and we ask that they give the same in return. And I think when you empower students with that information, it's amazing that they rise to that. And it's something that's really special about Randolph.
You mentioned trust and respect. Those are 2 of our 7 core values. And I feel our core values are not just posters on the wall. There's things that you see lived out every day in the way that students interact with each other, connect with their teachers, and carry themselves.
Absolutely. It's so intentional. We see this with the Mission Keeper Awards in your division, where we honor students who really embody those values in authentic ways. From your perspective, why are these values so important in the middle school years? And do kids genuinely embrace them?
I think when they're presented in the right way, they absolutely do. Youth are told what not to do. Don't do this because it's bad. Don't go in this direction. Don't get on this website. And so I think it's important to empower them and give them a voice on the values that they know are important. So when we present it that way, it's been one of the reasons they've really connected to the core values, which ultimately connect to our honor code. So the core values were launched a few years ago by our head of school and faculty, and I wanted to introduce them in a way to our middle school students and really make sure they are part of our fabric of who we are in our daily life. So one way we do that is we pick a core value every month to talk about. We incorporate into our advisory lessons. We have signs up in the wall, puts them into conversations he has with students about core values and how we treat each other. And then we have mission keepers in the middle school. So at the end of the month, Teachers nominate 3 students who really kind of, and then last year, a student came up to us, or a few students said, we really want to pick some mission keepers. We think it's important that the students recognize students who are emulating these values. So we added the 4th one who is nominated by their peers. So we recognize them in front of the whole school. They get a certificate. And to be honest, when we started this a few years ago, I was a little nervous that the older students would be too cool for it.
You never know.
I know, like they would not want to be recognized in front of their peers, but the opposite has been true. Like when you go to that assembly, they are excited for their peers, they're proud of themselves, and they're recognized. And it's just neat because we have so many students here at Randolph that do the right thing every day and who really uphold these values. So it's been a great way to recognize that.
That sounds like some feedback that we've heard also, that it's cool to learn at Randolph. It's
That's right.
cool to
Yeah.
be a good kid and
Yeah.
uphold these values. And part of living those values is the idea of being ready to learn. We hear that phrase used a lot in early childhood, pre-K students, but the truth is that it matters throughout a student's entire educational journey. So how do you help middle schoolers stay ready to level up, always ready for the next stage of learning and growth?
Absolutely. You're totally right about helping them prepare for that. I think fundamentally, a focus that you hear at Randolph, and I hear this being said a lot, is that we're teaching students how to think, not what to think. And when we do that, they can apply that in so many areas. So we want to teach them the skills that can be used in any classroom at any grade level. So that really starts with the teachers, and they're really intentional. So, at every department, teachers are really looking at skill sets and making sure that they're prepared for that next level that can be applied. So English teachers are looking at writing at every grade level, and our science department is analyzing science skills to make sure they're ready for that next grade level, and working with the upper school to know what they need to be prepared for. So I think that makes a big difference. And being a K-12 school naturally comes easy for that. We know what our students need to be prepared for in our school, and we hear that from the teachers. And we hear that when kids come back to us, they were ready for 9th grade. And it's beyond the content. It's knowing how to interact with adults and how to have the executive functioning skills to be successful.
Don't forget about pre-K, Jen, because it starts in that grade, and we do that so well. I believe that is one of our greatest strengths, is that pre-K through 12th grade, it is the humble offering of an independent school, because we don't have 40 campuses. We are managing, a more tight group, and we can really, again, be thoughtful about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Absolutely. Well, that level of understanding combined with those shared values is a huge part of what prepares our students so well for upper school.
As students move through middle school, what are the things you hope they take with them into upper school?
I think ultimately, at the end of the day, we want our students to leave the middle school knowing who they are as learners and to have that self-awareness. So, I talk with our team and Jolene Brown, and our goal is for them to leave us knowing this idea of, I know who I am, I know what I need, and I know how to ask for support. And that might be in the classroom, but also, I might need support in other areas. And then I also want them to continue to live out the core values that are so crucial to our school community. And I think if they can do those 2 things really well, to have that self-awareness and be able to seek support and also live out our school's values and mission, I think we set them up for success.
And Randolph really does give them those tools, the academic tools like lab time, experiential learning, interdisciplinary work. Can you talk about those differentiators?
Glenn, you've been here for many years, and hear alumni come back, and some of their most core memories involve the class trips. So those really start in 4th grade when they travel to Williamsburg. But starting in 5th grade, it's the first time they travel independently without their parents. And that's a big deal for kids. Oftentimes it's the first time that they travel without their families. So really every year we're kind of preparing them for that next level. And those trips provide so many memories and connections. We do them in the spring, and we come back from them when we say, man, we wish we did this in the fall, because the class dynamics change and the opportunity to get to know faculty. But our students travel to Mentone in 5th grade to really practice being independent. And then by 6th grade, we're taking them to the mountains of North Carolina. It's on team building and communication. This year, for the first time, I'm going to Charleston with our 7th graders. It's the one trip I haven't been on. Yeah, it's a focus on science and history. And then kind of our capstone trip for 8th graders is taking them to Washington, D.C. We've done that for many years. And I'm always impressed with how they engage with the museums and the visitors, and they get to meet senators. And it's just a really nice kind of finish to their middle school experience.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for sharing all of your insight today. It's clear Randolph's Middle School is a place where students are truly supported and known during these transformative years. Just a quick admissions note, if you are out there listening and thinking about Randolph, come whenever that instinct hits you. We want to talk with you no matter what grade level you're interested in. But if you're interested in the 26-27 school year, right now is the best time. We are scheduling student visit days. We're scheduling their testing. We are working through all the items that make an application complete, working towards a February timeline where we can get you talking about next year. So come see us. Come take a tour if you haven't, or just talk to Kelly Emerson, our associate director, who generally manages middle school applications. But my colleague, Catherine Sparks, can help as well. We're ready and waiting.
Jen, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing for these middle school students. It's really meaningful and does not go unnoticed.
People often say, you must be crazy for working middle schoolers. It's the best job. We have fun. Like, we love them. It's so much fun. And it's such an honor to work with these students.
Well, we're lucky to have you at the helm, and especially with your sunny disposition and all that you do. So thank you again. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us. This is Raiders in Focus.